when the time is right, you'll strike back.
Spoilers. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes. I'll talk movies all day, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about the Netflix Karate Kid revival series, Cobra Kai. So I guess this video is going to be a review, but maybe not in the typical sense of the word. If you're looking for something to help you decide if it's worth your time or not, the answer is yes. Go watch it if you haven't already. There, just save you however long this video is going to end up being. Anyway, I really just want to talk about my experience watching the show, because I can remember when it was announced that YouTube was going to be bringing back Karate Kid, and a lot of people were doubtful about how worthwhile it would be. And let's keep it real, they had good reason. RoboCop was a directionless, pointless mess of a film. Ghostbusters didn't exactly answer the call, even though, I ain't gonna lie, I actually liked Ghostbusters. And now they want to dig up yet another beloved 80s movie series to ruin, and YouTube? What are they gonna do, have PewDiePie turn up and shout the N-word a bunch of times, and give every episode some clickbait title like opening a karate school gone wrong, gone sexual? Now, as for myself, I kind of fell somewhere between the skeptical and the excited. The Karate Kid trilogy have for a long time been amongst my favorite movies. In fact, if it wasn't for the first film, there was a day somewhere around 1986 that I might have got beaten up in primary school. But thanks to Karate Kid, I did not. That's a story for another day. Also, if it wasn't for Karate Kid, I may not have gotten big into martial arts films as a youngster. I mean, it's not an exaggeration to say that the Karate Kid trilogy, especially the first film, played an important part in my growth and development. So as a longtime Karate Kid fan, I'm excited about a new entry. But also, as a longtime Karate Kid fan, I know this isn't the first time they've tried to bring it back. First, there was the short-lived 1989 animated series, which I vaguely remember. Daniel and Mr. Miyagi traveling the world, beating up the locals, or something like that. And now that I'm looking on IMDb, I'm realizing that Pat Morita was in the show, but didn't actually voice Mr. Miyagi. And Tamlin Tomita, who played Kamiko in Karate Kid 2, was in one episode as additional voices. Yeah, I think some odd choices were made. But Kreese Summers and James Avery were in it, so can't have been that bad. Anyway, next attempt at a reboot was The Next Karate Kid in 1994, which brought back Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi and introduced Hilary Swank as Julie Piss. And I know there were a lot of fans, myself included, that wanted to see Hilary Swank show up in Cobra Kai, but also can't act surprised that didn't happen. And then in 2010, we got the Karate Kid remake with Jaden Smith and the legendary Jackie Chan. And honestly, this weren't even that bad, but it was also nothing really new. It was near enough the exact same plot and story as the original, but this time, the kid learns Kung Fu. And all that brings us to 2018, when Cobra Kai launched on YouTube Red as part of YouTube's efforts into producing original content. But at the time, YouTube Red wasn't available in the UK, and the only way for us Brits to watch Cobra Kai, well, the only way for us Brits to legally watch Cobra Kai, was to buy the individual episodes at £1.80 each, I think. I definitely remember you couldn't even buy the whole season as a discount, you had to buy each individual episode. Proper piss take. So I wasn't even gonna bother with it at first, but the first 2 episodes were free, so I figured I'll just watch those now and then wait till whenever YouTube Red comes to the UK to watch the rest. But when I tell you, after those first couple of episodes, the way my wallet just opened up like, yeah, you need to be watching these now. I bought every single season 1 episode because it was that good. And then it turns out, had I just waited a month, YouTube Red, now called YouTube Premium, would have launched in the UK and I could have watched it for a lot less. Oh well. It's done now. But before I move on, I need to have a wee bit of a rant. Because as I said, I paid for all the individual episodes in season 1. Well, all but the first 2. However, now when I look in my YouTube account, Cobra Kai isn't there. I don't know when that happened, but at some point, somebody in YouTube decided to take away something I've paid for, and I don't know if they're expecting me to buy it again, but I would not be. But it just highlights one of the biggest problems with digital media. Things that you actually paid for can still be taken away from you at any time because somebody somewhere decides something. Anyway, the first season of Cobra Kai more than convinced me this is a show worth paying attention to. From the beginning, they established a world that is clearly set in the modern day but does not ignore its 1980s roots. And that's done primarily through the two leads, Daniel LaRusso, the 1984 under-18s karate champion, now a successful car salesman, married, 2 children, owns a home and is living a pretty good life. Then there's Johnny Lawrence, the previous champion who lost his girl and the tournament to Daniel in 1984, tried to show humility but was beaten up by his own sensei. 30 plus years later, now living in a shoddy apartment, has a kid somewhere, and basically a shell of his former self. Now, one of the things that really hooked me onto the show early on was the fact that they were very willing to challenge the events of the Karate Kid movies. For years, fans of the original films have been saying things like, the final winning kick, as cool as it was, would have actually been an illegal move. And Cobra Kai brought this up. That for me let me know that this isn't just some nostalgia cash grab. This is a real progression of an old story that makes sense in a modern context. Because how we viewed Karate Kid back in the 1980s has definitely changed to how we view it now. Back then as kids, we all saw Daniel as the underdog hero standing up to the privileged, arrogant bully. As grown-ups, we could see that Johnny was kind of a prick, but Daniel started it. Also the fact that all, or at least most of the humor with Johnny was situational. He wasn't trying to be funny, but he is this older guy, kind of stuck in the past, stuck in the glory days, hasn't really moved on, and that does lead to some genuinely funny circumstances. And I know I said there were 2 leads in the show, but let's keep it real. The story is really all about Johnny Lawrence, and I think it's a better show for it. Daniel had 3 movies. It's Johnny's time to shine now. Johnny effectively becomes the new Mr. Miyagi, the old handyman that reluctantly agrees to teach a young kid karate, and over the course of the show becomes a friend, a mentor, and a father figure to the young kid. The young kid in question this time around is Miguel Diaz, who is effectively the new Daniel LaRusso of the story, the boy who moved away from his home with his mother, father no longer around, albeit for 2 very different reasons, goes to a new school, falls for a girl that turns out to be the high school bully's girlfriend, gets beat up and meets a weird older man that has no problem putting hands on school kids. From the beginning, the show drew these clear parallels with the original movie, but also quickly branched out into its own thing. Following the story of Johnny Lawrence, we see him go from a man who has pretty much given up on life to realizing he's been given another chance through Miguel. We see his mistakes, his flaws, we learn about his childhood and how it wasn't as privileged as we originally thought it was, and through his ups and downs we also see his determination to be a better person. And by the time the 6th season wraps up, we got a very complete redemption arc for the man who was robbed 41 years prior. But speaking of redemption arcs, we also got a redemption arc for John Kreese, Johnny Lawrence's former sensei, and I ain't gonna lie, I wasn't too sure how I felt about this one at first. I've said before, sometimes you need a bad guy to just be a bad guy. Don't try to explain why they are the way they are, don't try to garner sympathy for them, just let them be a bad guy. And pretty much right up until 2/3 through the last season, Kreese was that guy. But realizing that his mentoring style played a huge part in Kwon Jae-sung's death was the turning point. Now, the reason I didn't really like it at first is because it's way too late to be redeeming John Kreese. That ship sailed long ago, and it just felt kind of dumb. I mean, yeah, a death is a pretty significant tragic event, but Kreese was bumming around for over 30 years. No one wanted nothing to do with him that whole time, and at no point he was like, yeah, maybe I'm the arsehole. Furthermore, after Kreese brought back Terry Silver and realized he unlocked Psycho Silver mode again, even then man wasn't thinking, maybe I'm the problem. It really took 3 movies, 34 years, 5 seasons, and 2/3 for Kreese to finally realize this? Come on bro, it's way too late. However, what turned me around a little bit was the fact that John Kreese's redemption arc wasn't really a redemption arc. Kreese realizes he screwed up everything and everyone, but I like that he acknowledges that he's been the bad guy for so long he doesn't know how to be anything else, and in the end, he doesn't really try to be the good guy, he just blows himself up along with Terry Silver on the boat. Allegedly. I'm just saying, Kreese has faked his death at least twice, possibly 3 times, and snakes can slither out of the most seemingly impossible situations, so just saying. Let's talk a little bit about Terry Silver now, because back in Karate Kid 3, Terry Silver was an insane villain, even by 1980 standards. So when we see 30 plus years later, Terry Silver is living a pretty good life. He's got himself a girl, a nice place, some questionable choices for friends, but each to their own. It made sense to me. He's long since realized how unhinged he was, got therapy and got his life together, until Kreese shows up, and thus begins Terry Silver's new and improved descent back into insanity. But here's the thing, had they just had Kreese show up, goaded him a little bit, then Terry falls in line like a high school kid, that would have been all kinds of not it. But thankfully, they don't do that. We get a backstory. We get to see Kreese and Silver during the Vietnamese War, Kreese stepping up for Silver in the internment camp, so we see and understand why Silver still feels like he owes Kreese, even after all these years. But the real problem with Silver is that he is a power addict, and once he got that little taste of power again, it was all over for him. And it's a shame, because had Kreese just left him alone, Stingray wouldn't have got beaten up, Kenny wouldn't have become a bully, Chosen wouldn't have got sliced up, and even though Kwan's death was mainly Kreese's doing, Silver had a hand in that too. Now of course no show is perfect, and Cobra Kai is certainly not without its flaws and odd creative choices. One of the biggest ones for me was Aisha all of a sudden disappearing. She had one of the most interesting characters in the early seasons, being friends with Sam LaRusso at a time when Sam was getting the opportunity to hang out with the popular kids, but at the expense of her friendship with Aisha. Aisha then starts taking karate lessons and goes from getting bullied to regaining her agency. There was so much more potential development they could have done with her character. But come season 3, Aisha gone. And as if that wasn't bad enough, they gave the lamest excuse. Her parents transferred her because there was a fight at the school? Really? Is that it? How many kids got killed in 13 Reasons Why, and not a single parent took their kids out of that school? But Aisha gets into one little fight and the mum got scared. And if you got that reference, put it in the comments. But perhaps even worse than the reason given in the show is the reason given in real life. At least according to Nicole Brown. Apparently the writers couldn't think of a way to incorporate her character? Really? Because it seems to me that most of what happened between Tori and Sam could have been Aisha and Sam. And in case you're thinking, but what about Tori? Aisha was there first. Should have had priority for the good storylines. Anyway, another bit that seemed a bit odd and kind of a huge waste of time was Miguel going to find his dad. Basically he finds him but doesn't let him know that he's his long lost son, because turns out maybe daddy ain't such a nice guy after all. Okay, but you knew that already, right? I mean, maybe I'm imagining it, but I'm pretty sure Carmen tells Miguel at some point that his dad was a bad man. And even if she didn't, why do you think you're living with your mom and your abuelita? You think your mother, who's been raising you for the past under 18 years, just decided to uproot her whole family, move to another country, cut off all contact with your father because he was such a great guy? Come on, man, think! Furthermore, just because he might be into some shady things, that don't mean he's not a good person. I don't believe anyone who would care for another man's child like that is all bad. He could have turned over a new leaf. He could be trying to do better. Just saying, you went all that way, give the man a chance. And just one more thing I didn't like too much. Let's talk about Kenny Payne. Now, Cobra Kai had quite a few good kids turn bad, then turn back good again. But to me, Kenny is perhaps the one kid that should have stayed bad. Or at the very least, not join Miyagi-Do. Because as much as a sleazy, slimy, low-down dirtbag that Terry Silver was, he was always pretty straight with Kenny. So after everything went down, I felt it would have made more sense for Kenny to stick with Silver and have that be a constant reminder to Robbie that he screwed up badly by bringing him into Silver's fold. But whatever, they didn't do that, no biggie. Kenny eventually joins Miyagi-Do, and then Devon puts laxatives in his drink, making him lose his spot in the Saikai Taikai. Okay, so now he's gonna leave and seek his revenge, right? Right? Wrong. He basically just disappears, sulking at home until they need him for the Saikai Taikai, and Devin gives some lame-ass apology over the phone. He goes to Spain, has 1 or 2 matches, flips off Silver, then spends the rest of the season in the background. Dude had no reason to join them, no reason to help them out, and after joining them and after helping them out, it meant nothing. So yeah, by no means a perfect show, but I do think there was way more hits than misses. And who knows, had they made the show show the way I would have thought, maybe it would have ended up being worse off. Because ultimately, how you feel about a show is always going to be the sum of its parts and not the individual parts. They created a great show with great characters, old and new. It was definitely a roller coaster of emotions throughout the entire run, and in the end, it came full circle to deliver a very satisfying conclusion to everything. Now, what's next for us Karate Kids fans is a movie called Karate Kid Legends. At time of writing, it's due out 30th of May 2025, and right now, all I know is it's set some years after Cobra Kai. It's merging the Karate Kid world with the Karate Kid remake world, and I am really looking forward to it. I'm glad they're leaving Cobra Kai as is because that story is complete now, and it's usually not a good idea to resurrect a complete story. You know what I mean? But I do think there is a lot of potential for spin-offs. Dimitri and Eli would make a great comedy duo, like the Big Bang Theory crossed with Smart Beavers and Smart Butthead, or maybe an underground mixed martial arts focused show about Sensei Wolf and the troubles he got into before Terry Silver showed up, or a gangster drama about Hector Salazar, Miguel's father, trying to be a good man, but just when he thought he was out, they pulled him back in. And if you got that reference, put it in the comments. But anyway, that's what I think of Cobra Kai. What do you think of Cobra Kai? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.